the smell of grass and leather. There were days when we'd play too. We'd cross the lines when the sun would shine and make our dreams come true. I had a glove on my hand and a girl in the stands. She stole my heart like a hit and run. It seems the world was so much simpler back then. We was just out there for fun. I pray for someone to hold your hand, and baseball in the summer, someone to walk with you when this world grows cold. Baseball in the summer, baseball in the summer.
Welcome to the BrockvMac Legendary Rivals Podcast International Edition today. We have, I think, a unique situation. I don't believe that this has ever occurred in Canada since. So the big pioneer, Scott Jusiak, who is one of our proud American neighbors, actually came to Brock to play baseball. Scott, it's been a hell of a long time. Again, I say this on some podcasts, not all of them, all due respect to some of our teammates, but you look exactly the same as you did 30 years ago. How you been?
Thank you. I've been doing great. No issues, knock on wood. I just got a text this morning when my friend's mother's passed away, so I got to reach out to him. But other than that, I'm fine. My family is fine, and everybody is doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, are you still in the Buffalo area these days?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit geographically where you are.
I live in Hamburg, New York, a little south of the stadium where the Bills play. Been living here for I think 17 years. I live with my wife, Erin. She's a Canadian. She was born and raised in Niagara Falls, Fort Erie area. Amazing. I met her in the States, so that's an interesting going to Brock and then coming back home and then meeting a Canadian and then, marrying her. She actually went to school with Jeff Hoover. So I've been waiting for Jeff to show up on one of these things as well. These podcasts.
Yeah. Jeff is a professor, if you can believe this, of business at Brock. So, it's like old homecoming week for some people. So, Jeff will be popping up, I'm sure, a little bit later in these things. We've almost got everybody, which is interesting. So, and obviously you're a big Bills fan, and I won't mention the number 13 seconds to you. I'm sure that's
wide right.
So before we get going,
got him on Buffalo. Yeah.
Before we get going, what do you think of Stefon Diggs trade? Was it time or?
For selfish reasons, he was one of my. I have two kids. I have a 18-year-old daughter, and I got a 10-year-old son, and he loves Diggs. He's got his Diggs jersey. Met him, got his autograph. So it was kind of a bittersweet. I was kind of like tired of the antics, but we loved him as a player. My wife works for M&T Bank. He was a spokesperson for the bank, so we saw him a lot on commercials, and it was a time, but he was a big part, not a big part of our family as like a rooting and cheering for him, and like I said, like jerseys and signatures and meeting and stuff. But we'll see what the future holds for the Bills. I temper my expectations every year.
It's a heartbreaking journey until the day that they do. So
yeah.
Scott, why don't we start? I think really, in your case, very few people would, outside of a real small core on the Brock team, can understand where you came from. So why don't we start there? Like, what was Scott Jusiak in your life like before there was a Brock on the horizon or even in Erie?
Yeah. Well, let's start back. My father was in the military, and I lived all over the world. I was born in Maryland, We moved to Kentucky, Germany, Texas, Alaska, New Jersey, Colorado, and then originally my parents are from Western New York, so my dad moved back to Buffalo, and then I joined the Air Force. And then after the Air Force, I went to ECC, Erie Community College here, because I couldn't, I needed to get a degree. And I started playing baseball for ECC. And that's where I met Coach McCray, very great guy and charismatic, as we all know. And, he talked to me about, after 2 years at ECC, I thought I had a successful 2 years there, had a lot of fun. And he talked to me about coming up to Canada, start a new program with him at Brock. So went to Brock, looked at it, liked it, talked to my parents, went through the financial ramifications of it, went through what it's going to be like, what it's going to take. But going back to an earlier comment that you made, like, why would somebody from Western New York or from the States come to Canada? I feel like living different places my whole life, and moving a lot, it was just another place to go, if that makes any sense. It was just another opportunity for me to experience going into Canada, playing baseball, seeing what it was all about, and putting that little tool in my box, or feather in my cap, whatever you want to call it. So that's how I got to Brock University.
So Scott, like you're obviously a bit of a globetrotter, and I'm sure that
Yes.
that corresponds with it. How on earth in there did you pick up the skills to play baseball? If you're in, were you playing baseball in all these different locales, or how did that start?
That's a great question. So in high school in New Jersey, I played baseball, and we had a really good high school baseball team. So they had a lot of clinics, a lot of camps. Every year we would go to Florida for a week or two, and we would go to a place called Boardwalk and Baseball. And it was just a camp of college, high school and college coaches. Obviously, you'd pay, the school would help subsidize it. And, my love of baseball, started there, I guess, high school, Monmouth Regional High School in New Jersey. Very successful, very good. And I fell in love with it. And then when I, got out of high school, I unfortunately tried to try out for the local college team. But I don't want to say I wasn't smart. I wasn't mature enough to go to college, I guess. So I didn't do very well in college my first year at 18 years old out of high school. So I came home. My dad told me to join the military, join the reserves, Air Force in Niagara Falls. As soon as I got out of that, I went back to college at ECC. And, I was a couple years older, and my grades, went up. And I saw a flyer for the baseball team, and I said, hey, I love baseball. Let me try out. Let me see what happens. And, bigger, stronger. There wasn't high school, and I was able to succeed at ECC, or at least compete, So that's where my love of baseball came from. And I still to this day think of, my high school coach, Ted Jarmas, and the love of baseball that he installed in me, and how he coached me, and everything like that.
So were you always an outfielder, Scott? Because you played outfield the times that I saw you, but was that the position you started at?
So in high school, I did play outfield, but I also practiced at second base and first. But we had a really good team in high school, so it was just, I had to find a spot, and that just happened to be, left field, center field, just happened to be where I ended up at. In college, left and center as well, but I filled in at second base whenever, the second baseman pitched, or there were certain games, you understand what that weren't as, lower level games, I would say, and he put me at second base or something like that, or first base. But for most part, I played, left and center field. Now playing baseball, I think back and I laugh. Playing summer league baseball, I played, 25 plus, 35 plus, 45 plus. Summer baseball is you play everywhere, right? There is no, maybe one or two guys play a certain position, but for the most part, you're a jack of all trades, because guys get injured, guys are missing, it's not as serious as college or high school. You got to show up every day. So, some days you might be playing first, some days they might throw you behind the plate as catcher, if that's where it needs to be. So very, very interesting how, as you get older, positions aren't as important as much as just getting guys out there and having that compete and wanting to play, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I think we all have that experience. A few of us, I was probably the originator of the PO, right? Like it's, you put me anywhere in the field, it's going to be a disaster. So even in senior ball, I was just, catcher, third base coach, or not a pitcher and a third base coach.
But
that
you
was
figure
my
it out.
second position. Yeah. So Scott, you go to Erie Community College, and Coach McRae is very young, at that point, and he looks young.
Yes.
Like this. He's not a guy that looks like he's his age either. So that makes it makes it difficult. Where were you? I mean, and he is charismatic, but what was his position there? And was he coaching you directly, or was it a different structure?
No, he was a pitching coach, and he was a great guy, and we had a lot of fun together, and we, spent a lot of time together, obviously, on the team at ECC, going away on long trips. We go to Florida every year, go to Fort Myers, and, long trips throughout the Northeast. And I guess he just got to know me, and I just got to know him. And then, when I was looking at my options, he just, gave me that additional option of coming up and looking at Brock University. So
we'll tackle it a little. Yeah, we'll tackle it a little bit later. Tackle it a little bit later. Where if you notice a change with him being the head coach as opposed to a position coach, it's a different dynamic, as you know. So,
yes.
So before we get to Mike's recruitment and that kind of stuff, it sounds like it's a good next step, and you're looking to continue a journey. Were your parents supportive of you looking internationally? Like what was their concern when you went to them and said, I might be looking to go to Canada to go to university?
Yeah, I don't think that they really had any concern. It was Brock University from Orchard Park or Hamburg, where I live, is maybe an hour at the most, depending on the bridge. So it wasn't far away that it was a 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. It was right up to QEW there, and I can get home whenever I needed to. So. It was a little weird conversation, say I wanted to go to Canada, but they've always been supportive of anything that I've wanted to do. And, they knew I love baseball, and, they wanted me to get an education, and that's where they, kind enough to let me go. Yeah. Not that they really had a choice, but, it was, because I was 21 at the time. So, it was my decision, but obviously I, spoke to them about it, and they helped guide me. Yeah.
Well, it's, I think it's important, because I think, parental support, or at least not standing in the way of, trying to figure these things out. And a lot of times it's learned by experience, right? You're going to learn what the differences are. And I don't know whether, he got some, any great insight into just how startup-y the program was in some regards. But I do remember taking you on a campus tour. That is one thing I do remember. You came up with a teammate. Yep. I will say that the one thing that Brock does is it shows well when you tour it. It's a good-looking campus. It's kind of isolated. It has... comparative to, and you would know this from some of the kind of city type colleges that are, sometimes in US cities, those can be a little bit rough looking, and Brock's pretty, is pretty looking, right? You drive up the drive, it kind of looks like it's got a little bit of, so tell me a little bit about what you thought of the campus when you came up. And I don't remember the name of your teammate, but he was a big, tall, right-handed pitcher. And was younger than you. Yeah, he was younger
I
than
remember.
you, though, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, about a year. Yeah, yeah. I was a little bit
Yeah.
older because, like I said, I was in the military, the reserve, so I took a year off before I came back to, so I was 19. Everybody was 18 at ECC, and then I was obviously a couple years older when I went to Brock. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, the campus was beautiful. St. Catharines, great city. On a side note, there, my son is 10, and I take him to St. Catharines to the Seymour. Oh geez, to the quad there, whatever, for power skating, and he goes to the Brock University girls coach for like hockey camps. He goes to Brock University for hockey camps. So I think it's super funny and cool that Brock University is making a little impact in my family's life as well as in the past in my life. So, but no, Brock was a wonderful experience. I wish I could have continued it, but unfortunately, money and I don't think my grades again at Brock were all that great. So after ECC having good grades and going to Brock, I don't think I was the most focused at times for that. But no, I liked it, and obviously Mike McRae was a big decision for me to go there.
Yeah, and before we get into training camp and these kinds of things, you and I played on the same team prior to Brock, although I don't really recall. Somehow, myself and a gentleman named Billy Newton, who was the at that time a catcher with McMaster, ended up on this ridiculous Tonawanda Travelers team. And the only things I remember were that you were on it.
Cheektowaga Travelers, yes.
Cheektowaga, is that what it was? Cheektowaga? Okay.
Cheektowaga Travelers, yeah.
Thank God. I've been calling it for Tonawanda was probably like some sort of hated rival now that I think about it. But I remember that we had those horrible uniforms. They were like gray pullover. And you look like a gray blob.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what was the most interesting of that place was the coach. The coach was a bizarre old man.
Yep. Sebastian.
I thought his name was Joe, but
Joe and his son was Sebastian.
Gosh, yeah.
Years ago, oh man, I'm bad with names.
Yeah, but he coached. He was the coach, but he didn't wear a uniform or anything. He wore like all white all the time, and drove a big white Cadillac. And he owned a restaurant or something in Buffalo.
Yes, I was just gonna say, drove a big white Cadillac. That was his. Yeah.
I don't know whether it was you, but someone told me he was connected. He would walk around with $5,000 in his pocket and $50,000 in his trunk, and I always thought, why doesn't anyone rip him off? But it's obvious as to why.
I don't know about the $50,000 in the trunk, but he always had a lot of money, and he was always buying stuff, and he was a great guy. And I played for the Travelers for 4 or 5 years. And actually, I've never stopped playing summer baseball, so that's interesting too. But, you play for the Travelers, yeah. I still play with guys that used to play with me on the Travelers in my 35, 40 plus year team. We always talk back, about how long ago we've been playing together, and it's pretty cool, the connection.
So this will bring up a great discussion because you being a resident of Buffalo. One of the things that sticks out to me was the parks, okay, right? Like in Canada, they put a lot of tax dollars into the parks. So you go to a baseball park, and generally there's a fence, there's lights, there's dugouts of some form or fashion, and some form of a clubhouse. I can't believe what we saw in Buffalo. Like even the good ones. What was the one with the golf green in left field? Is that Delaware Park that had that?
That was Delaware Park. Yeah.
Unbelievable,
and when we played there, they had 3 diamonds, and the three diamonds were kind of close together, so the outfields overlapped, and then eventually they went down to 2 diamonds to kind of spread them out a little bit. So it changed up a little bit, but still there was a golf course out in left field there. So if it hit the green, roll forever, and they call it. Yeah, no.
Are you ducking? I bet you that's the one time you regretted playing left field or center, right? Was when you were at Delaware, or
Yeah, well, you'd hope that the golfer would yell four, and every once in a while there'd be a ball bounce in front of you or around you or something. Let the guy play
yeah.
it through or pick it up and toss it over to him or something. I know those are good times.
Well, the best thing about playing in that league is you'd play in an all-star game at that time, Pilot Field, I guess would have been the name of it, or
Yes,
I don't know, Duntire Park, and
yep.
I had a ton of fun. It was that summer, I played with Daryl Kemp, which was a unique experience. Playing with Daryl, and obviously met you for the first time, and got to pitch on 3 or 4 teams. I don't really know why I kept being moved around. I left-handed, right? So left-handed people tend to be, but eventually Coach McRae said enough. It's enough. I think you've piled up, pitched in so many games this summer, you're going to be exhausted, right? So that leads us to training camp. And, no one was prepared for training camp. I'll tell you that. Because we didn't really know exactly who was going to be there. And I think the coaches had some insight into it. But again, we have the story of Andy Tinish phoning the night before and driving down, and, no one knew Andy was coming. And, so give me, you'll have a different impression, obviously, because you're the Muni League in Buffalo and even Erie, pretty high level baseball, but you're seeing a lot of scholarship kids in the Muni League. You're seeing guys who are playing D1. You see some ex-pros. There's no insight into what Canada's going to look like. What did you think when you got to training camp?
What did I think of? Compete. I was here, thinking back on it. I was here to play baseball. I didn't know anybody's background. I just assumed everybody was talking to Mike McRae, everybody was a ball player. Everybody, had the same love of baseball as I did. If they're going to play university ball, it's a very, small group of people that play, college ball from high school. And in Canada, it's probably even smaller, right? Back in the day, it probably wasn't even, I don't even know how many Canadian college teams played baseball. So it was a unique situation, small group of people. And I just hope that they had the love and the passion, and everybody wanted to be there to compete and to, get this program off the ground. And that was what I was there to do, to help, Mike McRae to get it off the ground. But as for specifics, like, it's just baseball, and I don't know if it's just over years and years and years, just being in my brain of just get out there and compete and, try hard. And, let your instincts take over and see what you can do.
Yeah, there was a wide variance. Because the university had a policy that said that anyone that phoned and wanted to come to camp, we had to let them. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it would be different. I think it would have been different if it would have just been 45 people that Mike had handpicked to be there, which I think was the intent. But we ended up with 4 or 5 people that kind of forced their way into the tryout. So they kind of stood out a little bit. And, another thing that's really interesting is you land in our deepest position on the team, other than first base. We have 4 really good outfielders. This is a thing, and not typical that you would land an outfield like that as a startup program. You might have 1 or 2 of those caliber of players, but we have 4. So, Daryl Houston said in his podcast, he remembers us just doing standard outfield throw drills, and, it kind of starts to get into this. Jusiak is going to unleash a throw to third. Bottomley then unleashes a throw to third, and then everyone kind of goes, what the hell was, and Daryl Houston had, a great arm too. So did you, and so did Bots. All 3 of you could throw, but then, you're all kind of standing there and you watch Andy Tinish grab one in the right field corner and uncork one to third. I think everyone's jaw dropped. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. No, you put out the stats, or somebody sent out the stats the other day, and I was going through it with my kid, just to show him, and I know it's not, it's hitting, it's not fielding, but I was kind of impressed at how well I did, with the number of at bats, number of hits, and so on and so forth. About an arm, I got a funny story. I went at ECC. I went to a pro tryout that was just an open tryout for, I can't remember, for a number of Major League Baseball teams. And I get out in the outfield, and they hit me a ball, and I throw it to second base. Nice line to second base. Next guy throws nice line to second base. And we throw to third base, and I got a nice one hopper to the third baseman, and I'm thinking, all right, I got this, right? And then the next guy, zip line right to third baseman, not a one hopper. I was like, all right, kind of shrugged my shoulders. And then we had to throw on home. And then, I hit the cutoff man, nice throw, strong throw to the cutoff man throws it home. The next guy, just a BB right to the plate, just like right on the line. Next guy, BB right to the plate, right on the line. I'm like, that's the difference between, like, just the guy that's playing and the guy that's, looking to go to the next level. And I remember Andrew had a really big, really, really big arm. Can really throw the ball.
Yeah, it was really unusual to see that with a left-handed arm too, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. He had a cannon. But yeah, no, it's interesting when you say that.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your relationship with Darryl Kemp, because you would have quickly got into into Coach Kemp's world, because he's working on swings and stuff, and is the hitting coach really. Tell me a little bit about your dealings with Darryl and your first impressions of Darryl Kemp.
Very impressive. He had a lot of knowledge. I think part of my issue and problem was, and I didn't realize it till years later, I went to a camp in Florida for a week, and I worked exclusively with hitting. I choked up on the bat. I didn't have a long swing. And I got into the groove where, I was just a singles, and I put the ball in the gap and into the doubles. And in my head was, I'm not making a Major League Baseball roster. I want to play today. I want to play now. I want to be the best player that I can be at this moment. So, I had my swing. Now, looking back, could I have done something differently and, made my swing harder and longer and maybe launch more balls? Probably. But, again, I was resolved. I know my place. I know my role. I still know my role to this day, right? I'm not hitting bombs. So you got to have a short, compact swing, put the ball in play. That's, more important than hitting home runs. So, like, I didn't, I talked hitting with Darryl. I remember talking to hitting with Darryl. But, 30 years ago, I don't remember much, like, retooling anything that I did or anything of that nature, if that, makes any sense. But I love hitting. I love studying hitting, and I love, watching it. To this day, I love watching. I love watching with my son and breaking down, like, hitting motions and lower half and upper half. And I think that's why I still play to this day at 50, 51 is, I put the ball in play and I hit it hard. It's not going 350 feet, but, it'll get through an infield of 50 of other 45, 50-year-old people. So,
it's amazing.
So, no, it's good. Yeah, it's totally amazing. They'll play.
Yeah. So, Scott, like, I'm not going to, dwell on making the team, because I don't think you were one of those guys that probably had any trepidation. We're not bringing an American across the Canadian border to get cut. That's for sure. And nor was your talent level of that ilk.
Say that again. You broke up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't believe that you would have had any trepidation about making the team. I think it was just finding your role within it, and there were you just happened to fall into a really deep position that had lots of good players there, and so from that perspective, I think the only thing that kind of separates us, and Coach McRae and I talk about it, is we weren't as deep pitching wise as we maybe could have been, from that perspective. We were maybe one or two guys short, but we were certainly good enough to kind of line up against most good teams. And tell me a little bit more about.
I think we wanted.
Yeah, we were super competitive. We just, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not there to discredit. You can't discredit a team that goes to a national championship final, goes 7-1 against D2 and JUCOs, and wins a couple of tournaments, and losing one game at the end of the year doesn't make a team. I certainly get that, but I would think comparatively to you would have seen a Niagara up close or a Canisius. I knew those programs really well, and it's really just a couple of pitchers. But I think our position players in particular maybe lined up a little bit better at points. We had really great position players, and you look at a guy like Jeff Hoover, and you look at Couture at shortstop, and Larry Houston at second, and the merry-go-round at first, and the four outfilders and the catchers. It's a shame we didn't see Nate Kapusa healthy, because he's a hell of a good player. You take that all day. 9 days to Sunday. You'd line that up against anybody. So, but tell me a little bit about, what you're taking in school. Are you living in residence, or are you living in, I don't remember, can't recall that.
Yeah, I live in,
and a little bit about go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I went to ECC, and I was 3 credits short of graduating from a 2-year associate degree. So I went to, Brock. I don't remember what my major was at Brock, but I was living in residence there, going to school. And, I don't think I had the greatest grades, but after Brock, I transferred to UB, University of Buffalo. And then my credits transferred over. Thank goodness they all, came over. And so I spent a year and a half at UB. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in communications and finance, and started my career. But I don't remember. I just remember it was just being a lot different. Canadian college being a lot different than American college. I remember that, going to classes and then having labs and things like that, where community college was not like that at all, and it took a big adjustment. I wasn't prepared, I guess as much as I thought I was going to be for a different type of Canadian experience. And now meeting my wife and having her, she went to college in Canada and college in the States, and said it was a little bit different, just structural wise, but interesting. But I'm glad I at least went back to school, got my degree, and have some good memories from Brock.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of that kind of choice in life, Scott. Anyway.
Yeah.
So did you find that was it hard? Did you feel a little bit like the players, clearly I remember you being pretty close with Andy Tinish and the outfielders. But did you feel the players were welcoming, from that perspective?
Yeah. You know what? I think also the issue is I moved around a lot, right? And every 3 or 4 years we get up and move, would have to make new friends and so on. So I was always a friendly kind of guy, get along with everybody kind of guy. And, I wasn't stuck in my, in my way. So it was just another team. It was just another bunch of guys. Everybody was great. Everybody was welcoming. It was, to me, it was competition, I always felt like I had to fight for competition, in high school, because we had such a great team. Nobody knowing me, coming and play summer ball in Buffalo. Everybody plays with the same people for, 20 years. And all of a sudden this new kid comes in, well, what does he have to offer? Who is he? And so, the same thing with Canada. I got to walk in, I got to, be a friendly guy, and earn my place. And hopefully for that 1 year, when I look at the stats, like I said, I impressed myself with the stats that I had. But hopefully I did earn my place that year, and obviously made an impression. I can come back here and get on a podcast. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll get on a podcast, and Christ, you're an active player. So, if we want to beat McMaster, we're going to need a few of those. Scott, what do you remember about the season? And we all talk about Cooperstown or St. Bonaventure, but you may yeah, you may have your own individual memories of the season.
Yep.
What were they?
So So thinking back before this podcast, there was one moment that we were playing in a tournament championship in Canada somewhere. I can't exactly remember where. And in high school, we played in a state championship, and I didn't do so well. And it was all mental. And my coach in high school recognized the mentalness of it, and pulled me to the side and had a conversation with me. But it wasn't physical. It was the moment was too big for me at that time, and I couldn't handle it. And so when I got to college, I tried to change the mental aspect of that, and I tried to work on the mental part of the game as well as the physical part of the game. Is just focusing on being in the moment. And I remember being up at bat in a championship game and telling myself, focus on the pitcher, focus on focus on the moment. Don't worry about what's around you. Don't worry about what's coming next. Don't worry about what happened before. It's you in this moment. And it was a huge breakthrough for me because I think I got a big hit or something like that. I'd like to go back and replay that, or if I ever could, or figure that out. But I was very proud of myself at that time. But that's the one thing that I remember about Brock University was that moment when kind of like figured it out in my head. And so it's I've been playing, again, like I said, summer baseball all year round, and I always go back to that moment at Brock every time I'm up, like in a summer league championship game or a summer league all-star game. That moment from Brock always comes back to me, and it makes me proud to think of that. But yes, Cooperstown was wonderful. Montreal, I had a great time in Montreal. I think we played some games there. St. Bonaventure, I always had a high, regard for them, and we hung around with them. I don't remember if we beat them or not, but we were right there with them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's listen, that tournament that we ended up winning was a Durham College tournament.
The Durham College tournament. Yes, thank you.
And it was big for a lot of us because there were 5 Oshawa guys who played in that stadium. And at that time, Oshawa was a really big junior program and had a lot of the best baseball players from Eastern Ontario in it. And so for the Houstons and Chris and Ted and myself, winning that tournament meant a lot. And, we had to turn it on because there were some, teams that had been around for years and years and years. And here we are, a first year team coming in and winning a tournament that, I remember, I don't know whether it was Onondaga that they had baby blue uniforms. It is another thing that I randomly remember from the Durham tournament was just how horrible some of the uniforms were. But it was great because, I think a lot of our players really took a lot of pride in winning on home turf for some of us. So, and so that's a great thing to hear about the switch turning on for you, which is, everyone gets their moment in the sun. After 30 years, I figured out that we all have a memory or two that stick because for us, it's something we revisit as a positive or a teaching moment. I just did a podcast with Brad Tupper, one of our teammates, who had a real rough year at Brock. He just did. He was on the field because, he was kind of more of a house league pitcher who was somewhat physically limited, and they've tried real hard to kind of get him to the next level, but and I think he got there mentally. It's a shame he couldn't have had a moment like you, but he talks about Coach McRae pulling him from a game where he was really struggling, and Brad was kind of looking to see who was warming up in the bullpen, which is something you just don't do as a pitcher. You don't ever give in, you don't ever concede, or you don't look for relief.
Yeah.
And Coach McRae took him in the clubhouse and kind of said, "You don't ever do that. Toughen up." And I said to him afterwards, that probably toughened you up for life, right? Like at that point, you kind of are disappointed in yourself. But when the coach points out that there's a different way and you embrace that, that's a teaching moment. It's not as important as the win or the loss. It's that your life is reflective of a tougher person moving forward. So I think it's super cool that you can reference something that you did at Brock as a private eye.
Yeah, I'm not going to forget Durham College tournament. I don't know why that slipped my mind, but yes, that's I think it's super cool. And I try to teach my kids the same aspect, right? It's most of it's mental, right? It's the challenge of getting past yourself, and then once you can figure that out, and put yourself in different situations, like me joining the military, moving around, going to Brock, coming back, and I put myself in a lot of different situations. So this way, if something, I like to think if stuff comes up as I get older, I'm able to handle it mentally better than, and stay calm and have a better response than I would if I didn't have those experiences and things. So, yeah,
That's great.
well,
Great, Scott. Well, let's touch on you going back to school in Buffalo. And, obviously it's kind of a journey back home, and are you feeling more comfortable, and does that allow you to kind of set a new path in your life where you're going to kind of attain what you want to do from an education and career perspective? And where does your wife come in, meeting your wife come in that mix? I assume it's when you're back at UB.
So no. So I went to I came back home, and then I registered for UB, and then I started coaching at ECC, Erie Community College. So I did that for a couple years, as why I went to school at UB, and then I graduated, stopped coaching, got a regular job in insurance, and that's where I met my wife in Cheektowaga at the Galleria Mall. She just happened to be sitting at a bar. Walked over to her. We started talking. Found out she was Canadian. Somehow Jeff Hoover's name got in there. She went to school with Jeff Hoover, which I thought was interesting. And I don't know, and then we started dating, and 3 years later, we're married. So it's and then back to Canada, right? Back to Brock, and I think, I don't know. I guess I have to have a conversation with her again. How impressed or how interested she was knowing that I went to school at Brock University as an American, and knew about Canada, knew about Fort Erie, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, all those areas up there, and I traveled around, going to Montreal and up north near Toronto, like you mentioned, Oshawa, whatever, because she comes over here as a Canadian. Comes over to the States as a Canadian, talking to a lot of guys, they don't really have that background, right? That interesting, interesting background, like I do, right? Like living all over these places and having all and stuff. So it worked out, I guess. Makes me laugh about
I could see you're like the most interesting man in the world because you've been to Oshawa, Ontario. That's just the best. But
yeah,
right. the fact
all these different places, yeah.
the fact that you owe Hoover $20 now for putting in a good word or making good impression, you'll have to collect on that. So Scott, tell me a bit about your career and what you're doing in financial services. Seems to be something in insurance. Yep. It seems to be a common theme in some of our team. Rob Green does this, Nate Capusa, Brad Tupper, several others.
Well, I've been with the same firm. It's called Equitable Advisors. I'm the compliance manager there. So I review like fund trades, stock trades, annuities, make sure the advisors are following all the rules and regulations for FINRA, the SEC, so on and so forth. I think it's a good job. I enjoy it. I make good money. It's a money. Obviously, finance is a money field. Advisors make a lot of money as financial advisors. But I've been there 20 years, so I have a really good boss. Really good rep. I don't want to say rep. I don't know. It's been fun. I have no complaints. I take vacations. We go to Disney World every year. We spend 2 weeks in Hilton Head. I have a lot of vacation time, a lot of tenure at my job, so it makes things a lot easier to have a little bit more freedom to take my kid to St. Catharines for hockey. My daughter is she just graduated in high school in the spring here. Going to go to University of Kentucky. She did not want to go to Canada for college. She wanted to go south. Tried talking her into that, but nothing to do with it. Just as a joke. But yeah, no. You know, finance. I just happened to fall into it. Right, it wasn't something I was looking for. I was looking for like marketing, communications, but somebody came to me with an opportunity, an offer, and I took it. And you know, with the flexibility and the schedule when I first started off, I was still able to play, you know, summer baseball, and you know, be active with basketball in the gym in the fall, which is hard, you know, now that you're older, you know, making time to get to do those things. But no, it's been a great 20 years at my company, and in the insurance industry for almost 23, 24 years now. So
It's great, Scott. Now I think a good question, because I have a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old daughter.
oh
Um, handling daughters is a little different. What's that been experience like? It's great being a dad, but they can they're a little different than the boys, right? The boys, you can kind of pull out some of the old Coach McRae uh,
yeah.
philosophy, but girls, man, they'll punch you straight in the nose if you do some of that stuff.
Yes, my daughter is wonderful. She's plays volleyball. She plays flag football now. She does dance. She's, you know, a really good. I think we think as a family, she's a really good kid. Good head on her shoulders. You know, she was looking, to go to college. She wants to get out of Western New York. She wants to go south. We like to vacation south. In Hilton Head, South Carolina, Florida, and she wants to go to the better weather down there. So after long, hard discussion, we decided that University of Kentucky was far enough but close enough away. It's about 7 hours drive for her to go to college. So we're going to be UK fans, football, basketball, the whole deal now. But yeah, daughters are a lot of fun. But luckily, knock on wood, I got a good one. Not as bad as when she tells us stories of her other friends and other girls and so on and so forth. So
Yeah, no, they mature on a different
yeah,
scale than guys do, right? Like they do
more
everything
independent.
earlier. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I have a 10-year-old son, and it's yeah. Yeah, he's a good boy too, and he listens and all, but he's just a little slower than Bella was. We still got to comb his hair sometimes and tie his shoes, and we're like, clean up after him. And I think, dude, you're 10 years old, like you gotta start figuring stuff out. But I think it's also us as parents. We don't demand as much as like my parents did 40, 50 years ago, or their parents did. We're more lenient, more laid back. We're not as I don't know. So I put part of the blame on us as parents too. So, but
Well, but
I'm hoping
also
to get him into
like
hockey.
you and I,
So.
I think you and I. Well, you and I can look back in the mirror and go, even at 21, you're 21 when you're at Brock. I'm 23 at the time.
Yeah.
Like I was nowhere near being ready to be like, I'm still figuring it out. Like we're really figuring it out at
Yeah.
that point. And the 18 and 19-year-olds that are coming in as freshmen they're also really figuring it out. And we get pushed into a really intense experience. There's a lot of ball on top of, most of us had academic schedules that we had already kind of laid in with not knowing any of this stuff.
Yep.
And, it was hard to maintain grades, to maintain a social life that was probably there, and to fit in with new teammates. It was just a lot right at the beginning of a year. So I can't imagine coming to a new country, new residents, totally different way of doing school. And you don't even have time to kind of get your breath. We are going 100 miles an hour before there's even a frosh week. And you report to your first class because we're in training camp already. And then the season starts during frosh week. Did you find it a little bit overwhelming, Scott?
You know what? I didn't, because 2 years at ECC, it was go, right? I already played 2 years in college, and go, classes, baseball classes, right? And a lot of traveling Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes Fridays and the weekends. We're constantly traveling. So going to Brock, maybe for somebody that, maybe a freshman or somebody that hasn't played college baseball might have been a little bit more difficult. But for me, I kind of felt like I was just stepping into the same thing that I was doing the last, few years. A little different because it wasn't as, might not have been as organized as an established team, right? You think back, you mentioned Canisius, Niagara, St. Bonaventure. We had the talent that could play with them, but we didn't have the history and the what word am I looking for here? The history and the past, where they had established programs where they knew, all right, you come in, this is what you do, A, B, and C, and D, right? Where Brock, we were brand new, and it was all trying to figure out. And McRae was trying to get it all together, and the other coaches, and the players are all new, and there was no one really like, senior class or upper class to rely on to say, hey, this is the positions you have to be in, this is where you have to be, this is where you have to go. We were all new, we were all figuring it out together. But being already been in college for 2 years at a community college, it was just stepping right in and just kind of continuing with that, high level of busyness.
Well, here's an interesting thing that just popped into my head.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main drivers for you coming over was, at the time, the exchange rate was very slanted, and we're in another era where the exchange rate is very advantageous for America, Americans coming into Canada. Given that that's the situation, and what your knowledge is of the education system, both from yourself and your wife, would you recommend that, baseball players that maybe are needing a little more polishing and a little more coaching, and are maybe, fighting for playing time and at D1 schools, that they should look at maybe going to a Brock or a Canadian school that's got baseball?
Oh, going from the States to Canada, I'm still, I want to say, close with community college, but I still talk to a lot of my community college friends, and there's a lot of good community college baseball around here. For 2 years for guys. Sometimes guys just need to mature. Sometimes guys are great, and they stay great, but they never really reach that next level. Sometimes guys just need more polish to go to D1. Very few players in the Western New York area go D1, or go D2. Most of it's community college or D3. I'm always looking, who gets drafted, who goes where, what. I'm always, trying to read the paper for the local high school kids, what's going on with them. And it's just not a hotbed of, college pro, where they're looking for college or pro players, for whatever reason, but I don't know how much Brock, do they recruit down in Western New York? Does Canada come down here and look for American kids to bring them up there? Yes, the exchange rate is great. We got married in Canada, and it was almost 2-1 at the time when we got married back in 2003, I think. So our dollars went, way farther, getting married in Canada than it would have happened, in the States. So, and that was a big reason why I went to Brock too. When I looked at the numbers and I looked at the dollar amount, what it costs and what the conversion was, it was affordable. I sat down with my parents and we talked about it, and, it wasn't, didn't blow us out of the water, and said, no, you can't do this. We can't afford it. It was the same as probably going to UB or something like that. I remember at the time. But yeah, that's I think it's a big exchange rate. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when they made some changes here to the law about international students because of various things, and I think it's one of the things that is a future for a Brock is, you have to have a reason now to attend school, and between the U.S., maybe elements of Mexico or South America, and particularly the Pacific Rim, where they play a lot of baseball, in Japan, and if you can establish a really good program that's going to help develop kids, and they're going to have that educational experience. With the currency being what it is, Brock, I think, has a really unique opportunity because it has the great park and the proximity to play different types of competition, as Coach McRae likes to say. And you're the pioneer. You're exactly the test case. We'd have obviously preferred that we managed to kind of hold on to you for 3-4 years and that kind of stuff. But really, it's kind of a model, I think, that the university could look at and say, here's a solution for us. We can attract people with our sports program and make it affordable for them because of the currency. And so you're kind of a pioneer, Scott Jusiak.
Yeah. Have you had any other Americans come and play for Brock? Am I really the only one that's been in almost 30 years, 20 something years?
I think there's been an international student that came in maybe from Mexico, but I don't believe we've had a second American. So you'd be one of one, your own Hall of Fame class. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. A lot of Canadians come to the States to play baseball at ECC. If you go to ECC's, I follow them. If you go on their website, they have Canadians come down here. Obviously, with basketball, Canadians are constantly coming down here and playing for D1 schools as well. So, interesting to see how many Americans go up north to Canada, besides hockey, maybe. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be a change in the, I think the baseball program's got to really understand that this is an opportunity, and they're going to have to build it up. Because if your options are to play 20, 25 games in Canada, that's not competitive when you've got 50 games or 60 games on the slate, and you got to at least be in that 40 game mark, I think 45 game mark, and if you can kind of get to that, and then there's some advantages because so much of the resource goes to the education part of it, then you might be able to attract, not only maintain Canadians that might be going down to the U.S. to play, but you might be able to attract the odd American that is getting like kind of half options, right? You get a chance to play, but we're not going to promise you a position, those kinds of things. And there's lots of late bloomers, right? Lots of guys that shoot up another couple inches and put on 10, 15 pounds, and they're way better players than when they're in their scouting range for college or pro. There's an amazing article that I think would be a very amazing interview that was just conducted that you would really quite like. James Andrews, who we know is the guy that does most of the Tommy John surgery in high-end Tommy John surgery, just came out and said he thinks one of the most unhealthiest things that they've done is put radar guns on kids under the age of 25, because your ligaments are actually still growing and developing all the way through. And that mad rush to be throwing as hard as you can by 18 or 19 years old is super unhealthy. And
you're right.
Like that's.
So you're absolutely right. My kid's 10 or 11 with their, and they have the radar ball, right? I don't know if you've seen the ball with the inside of it. They got like a speed thing inside of it, right? So they're out there throwing as hard as not strikes, mind you, but just throwing as hard as they can, trying to figure out who can throw the hardest. And I got to go out there and say, hey, listen, it's not about throwing hard; it's about throwing strikes and getting your right mechanics down. But they don't want to hear that. But I we're old and wise. They're young.
Well, but it also means that people are being scouted at the wrong age. Really, what it's like. I'm sure you played with guys that when they were 20 and then you saw them later in summer ball at 24, 25. All of a sudden you're kind of like, you were not that good when I saw you at 20. How did you get so much stronger? Well, that's why.
Yep. Because summer ball, guys only pitch, in the summertime, and maybe we play 20 games, right? But a pitcher might only pitch, 5 or 6 of those 20 games. And, guys have normal jobs, maybe just working out. And, you're never going to see a guy, which I enjoy when I play summer ball, blowing the ball by you, right? At this age, it's all about, off speed and keeping people off their balance and keeping people off, hitters off balance, throwing change up and curveballs and things like that. But yeah, guys, you look at them and you go like, wow, you pitch so well. You probably could have did something with yourself, but again, with maturity comes, better smarts in pitching, but they never had that opportunity to, get to the big leagues or get to the minor leagues or do anything to do anything with it. Yeah, we play a lot of guys like that. Play with a lot of guys like that.
Yeah, I have look, when we were playing, there were also other factors in the game, Scott. I remember, and I don't think this was with the Traveler team, but I played with a couple of guys, and I won't mention them by name because I know their name, but their brother played a fairly significant player for the Minnesota Twins. And I remember saying to them in the dugout once, you look nothing, because their brother came to watch one of our games. And I would say to them, you look nothing like your brother, like you guys played AA ball as far as they got. And they would just kind of wink and smile at me, but we know why, in retrospect, in 93, 92, 91, there was a lot of also chemical enhancement that went on. There were a lot of guys using steroids. And it wasn't just at the pro level. It I played with guys that were constantly cycling. So, I think scouting and the way that they look at baseball players and the way that the game is viewed now will hopefully change and understand that they leave a lot of great players at the side of the road because they think they need to be great at 17 or 18 years of age. And there's a ton of guys that just bloom late. And, if you just let people naturally grow on their pace, you might see something a little bit different.
It's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
Governed.
Huh?
Well, I think you'd start to listen to a guy like James Andrews, right?
Yeah. It's a vicious cycle because my son, he plays house baseball and he plays hockey, and he's only 10, but then we hear how AAA players and AA players, and I hear all these stories of how kids change at as they grow up. They 13 they're different than 15, and they're different at 17 is different 15. But we're always looking for to make them better or move them up than they really should be. Instead of just letting them play and enjoy themselves, we're putting labels on them and ranking them and doing and so on and so forth. So it's I think it's just the way of the world and how everything is going now. Everybody wants to know, like, are we the best? Are we the top? Where's my standing? This and that, instead of developing and letting, kids let them develop at their own pace. Yeah.
I think it's amazing, Scott. Like I'm genuinely surprised because I kind of felt that you were a guy that had traveled a lot and done a lot of different things, and we're likely to continue that. And 30 years down the road, it feels like you finally found your home, right? Like you're home and you're very happy and content, and makes me smile.
That's a great. We have these conversations with my wife all the time. I grew up moving all over the place, different places, everything. I wanted one place. I wanted a hometown. I wanted my kids to have go from elementary school to high school, graduate, and I wanted to be that kid or have my kids be that kid that everybody knows in town. You go to the bar, you go whatever, and everybody knows you, right? Where that wasn't me. I would go to college. I would go different places. I was constantly making new friends. I don't want to say it was annoying, but it was just it grated on me a little bit. So I always said, I want a hometown. I want to live somewhere where I want to cheer on one team. I don't want to bounce around. And so that's what I got. But now, my family, they all want to move. they want to go south. And they all like, no, we want to go better weather. We want to like be by the beach. We want to do this. We want to do that. And I'm like, no, I want my daughter to, to do dance for 12 years, and then graduate and have the same friends. I want my son to play hockey and baseball and have the same kids. And, because I was always jealous of those guys when I would show up. And I think I mentioned earlier, right? I was always the new kid showing up, always having to prove myself. I was always jealous of the Jimmies and the Joes who, hey, they've been friends since second grade, they've been playing ball together. They knew each other, and they had each other's backs all the time. I was always the new kid. And I just got kind of tired of it. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, but that's the reason why I've stuck around Western New York and Hamburg for so long, is because I think it's nice to have a hometown. I think it's nice to say, this is where I'm from. This is what I've, have all these friends and teachers and, people in the community that know you and understand you, where I just don't have that. I guess that's, I'm always, where are you from? Well, 50 million places, right? Now my daughter wants to leave anyway, so she'll start over. But
yeah,
no, that's you very, very good.
I think, Scott, because it's myself and about 29 other guys, would probably have sensed that a little bit, but at the time we're, I think
everybody's
just planning on. Yeah, probably planning how we're going to escape Coach McRae's curfew or whatever, like we just kind of like to do that kind of stuff. But I think we all kind of sense that, and I think it'd make all of us excessively proud to see what you've done, because I think you would have been one of the less predictable people. Some people, I think, very predictable, right? I talk about Rob Green a lot, because Rob is at home in Burlington, doing what Rob Green would have done. He just had that personality and seemed that settled in his life. And it's, of course, because he was a fourth year guy. And, the fundamentals of his life were starting to kind of take root at that point. And I'm super happy that the Brock experience, while it wasn't home for you, has left obviously a mark if you're coming back to St. Catharines from over the border to bring your kid in for power skating. And that you kind of even have a half joking conversation with your daughter about her university choices, but more so it's how it resonates in your life. Jeff Hoover, marrying a Canadian, finally finding that sense of home. I think that's amazing. All right, we're going to end this on one really, I think everyone would want me to ask this question, so I'm going to do it. Scott Jusiak, you play for Coach McRae as an assistant coach at Erie, and then he's the head guy at Brock. Tell me objectively, did you see a difference in the way that he, did he change when he became a head coach? I think you have to a little bit, but, tell me a little bit about what you thought of that.
I think I was, he was friendlier at ECC. Not that he wasn't a friendly guy, but he was, more friendlier, joked around more as an assistant coach. And then became the head coach. Obviously, looking back, years of experience, he had to change, right? He's the person in charge. He's the one running the program. He's the one trying to get everybody together, trying to make sure all the drills are taken care of. Everybody's running their own roles. So he was less, I don't want to say a fun guy, but less of a fun guy. But that was just his role, right? I didn't think bad about it. I didn't like look down upon him because of it. It's he's taking a step in his career, trying to better himself, trying to make him, put himself in a position that he can become a head coach, possibly someplace else. Now, would I have thought about that at that time? Probably not. But now looking back 30 years and seeing, what he's done and where he's, gone and what he's gone through, it was just another stepping stone in his, his path. Right. I just have, fond, memories of Mike. Always had a good time. Always got along with him. And I'm, forever grateful that he thought of me. and he brought me up to Brock, and wanted me to be a part of the inaugural season of Brock University baseball. So he'll always have a place in my heart and in my thoughts, knowing that he did that, right. Very few people, as you probably know, that did something or thought of you or put you in a situation that is different and unique in your life, that you can look back, probably count on one hand how many people that I have that can do that. And he is, obviously we never stayed in touch, I did, follow his career, coaching at Canisius, coaching at Niagara from the papers and things like that. But I'm appreciative of what he did for me, wish I could have, been there for 3 years, but, it is what it is. And, life takes everybody in different directions. And I don't want to say, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but, I wouldn't have graduated UB, maybe, wouldn't have met my wife, maybe, wouldn't be in the situation I am now. So I'm very appreciative of everything that I have.
I think to a man, we would all say that we would take that at bat and that result over the alternative 100 times out of 100, sir.
No, thank you.
So we'll make a little deal here. Yeah, I know that you're going to be playing summer ball this summer. You're not allowed to get hurt. I'm going to send a memo to the coach that says, pinch run for him when it looks like he needs to go first to home or second to home with 2 outs. There'll be no sliding, and we're definitely going to need you when we suit up against McMaster. And
when is that? When is that again?
It's third week of September. In St. Catharines. And I think one of the best things is Todd and I, who we played with, went through that freak accident where he lost sight in his right eye thanks to a little accident on the baseball field there. Mm-hmm. And Todd is such an amazing guy. And he'll be able to pitch in front of his wife and kids for the first time in 30 years. He had to retire from competitive baseball thanks to that silly injury at Brock. And so, we want to get a scholarship in his name established there, and maybe that'll give us a chance to bring a second American over, So I think everyone will really look forward to seeing you. We're going to do, a Friday night where we screen Major League and we do some roundtables. Hopefully we can get the 3 lifetime coaches at Brock all there talking about their philosophy, which would be hilarious to hear Jeff and Mike and Mark mix it up on, whether they believe in bunting or stealing or any of that stuff. I'm sure we'll hear a lot of Mike's 3-man crew pitching system philosophy. And then Saturday, we're obviously going to, get into uniform. You're probably one of the few people that can fit in the same sizing you had 30 years ago. Yes.
I'm not saying I'm the best shape, but I do keep in shape. But I keep in shape for baseball, for the summertime. I really enjoy playing, and with my friends, guys I've been playing with for 30 years, and it's a lot of fun. And I look forward to maybe come up and seeing you guys in September in St. Catharines.
I look forward to you channeling your Durham College moment and driving in the winning run against McMaster. That's what I look forward to. And then obviously we'll watch the normal varsity teams play, and then we've got a concert and a kind of a blow off to all this. So a good way to reconnect for after 30 years. And we're really looking forward to adding a little international flavor to it. Scott, thanks so much for today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. It was nice to speak to you, and thank you for thinking of me for doing this. I hope I add some value to your podcast here. Thank you.
You add a little juice to it, Juice. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Well, the smell